turned out to be much more interesting than I had anticipated at first. But the basic requirement that the IIG has set is that to pass the preliminary test, you must beat a 5,000 to 1 odds. That is to say, the chance of your passing the test the chance of passing the test is less than 5,000 to 1. The chance of passing the test by chance is less than 5,000 to 1. Too many chances around here.
Likelihood.
Yeah. Probability. Okay, now, as I say, it's a little geeky. The odds tend to be easier for people to understand. Probabilities are easier to calculate with. So most of the things I'm going to say, I'll use both, or maybe just one, but understand they are equivalent. Now, when given what Jay described about the claimants, there are a variety of possible testing protocols.
We lost the slides. Keep talking.
Oh. What is that?
It just came up by chance. I will miss it.
Well, the first one that might spring to mind is, well, to get 5,000 to 1, you set up 5,000 boxes, put the gold coin in one of them, and ask him to find it. This is a little impressive. Maybe it's a lot impressive. At any rate, we never seriously gave that any thought at all. You quickly realize when you start thinking about this, and in fact, this is a fairly common test. The IIG has done this kind of test many times. The San Francisco branch hasn't, but it is fairly common. So what you quickly realize is you trade off the number of boxes that you can hide the gold in for sequential trials. You're going to give the claimant a chance to find the gold coin multiple times in multiple trials. And that's what are you going about that?
Hang on. I'll get you there. I'll get you.
Can I push?
I'm on arrow. Yeah, we've got it on
So,
automatic.
you know what? Just push down. Just push down with it.
Okay. Sorry. One second. So we have the possibility of fewer boxes, multiple trials. There's a trade-off between convenience and the fewer boxes you have, the easier it is to set up. The more trials you have, the longer it's going to take. In fact, turns out there's some other trade-offs in the statistics for arranging this. I'll talk about that in a bit. We more or less arbitrarily chose 10 boxes, 10 trials. That was mostly because 10 is a round number. Having said that, though, let's consider how many trials we would have needed if the claimant had been perfect the way he claimed. In fact, we could have done 4 trials with 10 boxes. The table here is the probability of any particular number of successes if there were 4 trials, and the chance of success on each is 10 to 1. This table is computed with binomial distribution. For the other geeks in the room, you know what that is. Otherwise, I just got the math right. Trust me. Well, actually, I think Jay did the math. Okay, but as Jay said, we have to consider fairness in designing the trial. We have to not only consider what the claimant might want to believe is fair when we're negotiating, and this is the subtle point, we have to consider what he might say after he fails. For purposes of this talk,
If he fails.
I'm going to assume he'll fail. I'm told that I shouldn't say that.
You shouldn't say that.
Jay says I shouldn't say that. So please erase your memories that I said it. But our reputation for fairness is really important. I've talked to a few potential claimants who have said they don't trust us, they don't think we're going to be fair, and they have in particular said that no test Randy has ever done was fair. Now, I don't agree with them about that, but we have to bend over backwards to make sure that we can argue not just to the claimant, but to fair-minded people that we were fair. In this context, what does that mean? Well, nobody is perfect. Even if the claimant says before the test that they can be perfect, after the test, they're likely to say, oh, I got one wrong. Well, you know, it was just a random thing that I got one wrong. I really did well because I got 3 right. And we're not going to let him pass the preliminary test with only 3 right if we have 4 tries. So what we did is Jay actually said it before, we arbitrarily decided on 10 trials with 10 boxes each trial. And here's the table for that. Now, the numbers in red are the numbers that satisfy the requirement that the probability of getting those by chance is less than 0.002. In order to find the probability of passing, if we say any of the red numbers are a pass, that's 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, you have to add all those together. Now the numbers drop off fairly quickly, so it's the actual probability for passing, which is very close to the probability for getting exactly 6 right. The other interesting part of number in this table, at least to me, is the number just below the criteria of 6, that is to say 5. 5 I'm going to call a near pass. If the claimant actually does achieve 5, it's going to be very uncomfortable for us. We talked about this a bit. Some of us are more comfortable with it than others, but I think I would end up being very uncomfortable. Now, as I think Julia talked about in her talk earlier, sometimes people are not really accurate about how they're going to feel about a result. I'm pretty confident that I'm going to be uncomfortable. And I'm actually confident if this happened. I'm actually confident that people who say they wouldn't be uncomfortable will be uncomfortable. So I believe that a criteria for fairness is that the probability of a near pass should be low. And the interesting thing here is that the probability of near passes goes down as the number of trials goes up. So from that point of view, 10 trials is better for us than 4 trials. Okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit about what I thought about after this whole episode was over. There's the criteria for fairness is a little hard to quantify. In fact, it's almost impossible to quantify, but you can look at some examples. And what I looked at was the probability. suppose you had a claimant that said, well, he can't be perfect with 10 boxes, but he could get it right 9 out of 10 times. That's still a pretty strong claim. I mean, it's not quite as extraordinary that it would be perfect, but it's pretty strong. And so we have to want to test that. And what would it be like to decide on a protocol for that? Now, this really is negotiating for the claimant because, as Jay suggested, claimants don't tend to be very sophisticated statistically. I think that's an understatement. But nonetheless, I think that if we had such a claim, and we can't exclude it, we want to consider how to decide that that test is fair. And one way of looking at that is to consider the probability of failing if the claimant could do 9 out of 10. And in this case, the probability came out to 0.0016, which is pretty low. It's equivalent to 6.5 to 1. And we don't have any actual agreed requirement for those odds. 6.25 to 1 seems pretty good to me. So this test is acceptable. I actually ran the numbers, and if we wanted to apply 5,000 to 1 on this, we would have needed 15 trials, which isn't much more than 10. So I like to think about the statistics, so I did, but I probably overthought to use this criteria. Okay, now let's talk about the difference between a challenge test for the prize, or in this case, the preliminary demonstration, and a scientific investigation. Well, there's one fairly obvious difference. If you have a scientific investigation and you say, well, there's probably is or isn't the effect, you can go on and do another scientific investigation. In fact, I usually say that there's never been a scientific paper written that didn't include more research is needed. On the other hand, if we have a prize and somebody wins it, that's the end. So we're justified a bit in setting a higher criteria for success than is done in a lot of scientific papers where 0.05 is the criteria. In general, if you look at medical research, this varies a little from research protocol to research protocol, but they use 0.05 as what they call statistical significance. If some treatment helps and the probability of that outcome is less than, by chance, is less than 0.05, they'll say they have a statistically significant result, and the treatment will be taken as something to be done. That's if they're science-based. But we won't go into that. That's another